Hey kids, this is Mark Arm from Mudhoney.
I'm Kevin Martin from Cannabis.
This is Nicole Alvarez from the world-famous K-Rock.
Hi, I'm Dave Cruzen.
I am Matt Vaughn from Easy Street Records.
This is Richard Stuverud.
Hey, I'm James Joseph from James and the Cold Gun.
This is Jeremy Toback from the band Brad.
And this is the State of Love and Trust.
State of Love and Trust.
State of Love and Trust.
A Pearl Jam podcast.
Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. Feed that algorithm.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the State of Love and Trust. It's a Pearl Jam podcast, and one of your two hosts, Jason Kerepesi, and alongside me, as always, is
Paul Ghiglieri.
Boom! I'm excited, Paul. Are you excited?
I'm thrilled. I'm holding something. I'm teasing it. I'm teasing it.
People who are listening only are like, what the hell are they doing? I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm here to promote our show by asking you to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and you should hit the bell for notifications. And if you are listening only to that really awkward exchange a moment ago, Paul, what should they do?
Well, they should rate, review, and subscribe on their preferred podcast platform of choice. Feed that algorithm. When you do, it may end up somewhere in one of these. I don't know. What am I holding here?
Oh my God. I'll tell you what you're holding, Paul. You're holding the Patreon giveaway of this month, November 2024. That is this book, I Am No Guide, Pearl Jam Song by Song by Brian Stippleman, a.k.a. Stip and Brandon Rector. And I'll tell you what, this book is fantastic. We're going to talk to the gentleman who wrote it, those two guys I just talked about, in a little bit. And I mentioned the giveaway. It's part of our Patreon. We do a giveaway each month. Patreon is the way that we fund this show, that we stay on the air, as it were. So if you like this show, audio only or video too, go ahead and consider joining Patreon. And you could join the Discord server. You could join, what else could they join? They could get extra content, video, audio, and the giveaway, which this month is this random drawing. Cool.
It's
fun.
A beaut, Clark.
Yeah. I will say more important than saying thank you to us is to donate to our November fundraiser. This one benefits our veterans with the Wounded Warrior Project. Very, very important to not only thank our veterans for their service, but to help them. And the Wounded Warrior Project does so very much so for homeless veterans, disabled veterans. These guys come back with all kinds of injuries and PTSD. I've got a buddy of mine from college who has been dealing with sleep apnea and a major, major back problem since he came back from Iraq many years ago. And so I know this organization does great stuff. Yeah. And we wish that you would go ahead and send a few bucks over there. And
Please
if you are the greatest donator, Paul, well, not you. You can't win this, Paul.
No,
but
I
the
am
people
not
out
eligible.
there, you'll win this. The greatest donator in November will win Brad Clausen's new book, expanded edition.
I got my copy right here.
Right there you go. So that could be yours if you donate the most money to the Wounded Warrior Project. So you should go ahead and scan that QR code back there, or go into our Instagram bio and tap on the link inside that bio.
For sure.
And donate
We got
a few
pins.
bucks.
Yeah. We got stickers too.
$5 or more, Paul. They get stickers and pins.
Get them.
Get them. Hold on. I got to toss them like you toss them. Like that. Make it rain. Last thing. We have some stuff that we sell to help fund all this as well. And one of those things is this really cool slip mat.
That
I think is dope.
It's almost as requisite as this bad boy right here.
What a segue. Also, Paul, I've cracked open another. We're not quite at solstice season, but it is.
We're getting
ball
close.
horning season from Anderson Valley.
The unofficial official beverage of this show.
One day we'll actually get them to participate in the show. Anywho, without further ado, to talk about this fabulous book that comes out today, November 19th. I Am No Guide, Pearl Jam Song by Song. It is Stip and Brandon Rector. They have been two stalwarts of the Pearl Jam fan community for over 20 years, if you can believe it. And even if you didn't realize it, they have been. If you ever visited theskyscrape.com, you've run across them. I did, and articulated their importance to my development with and without the band in the foreword of their new book, I Am No Guide, Pearl Jam Song by Song. Welcome to the show, Brandon Rector, and back to the show, Stip.
Thanks for having us. That 20 years is a sobering statistic.
I had to go back and check. I wanted to check my notes. 20 years.
That was our polite way of saying you're old.
You're old. Stip, and I don't want to embarrass you, but I've been sitting on this for a couple weeks now. I want you to know that my name is Jason, right? It is Jason.
Oh, did I send you guys the wrong books?
I don't know. Who the hell is that guy?
So that's fun. Way to start the show. We got the wrong book.
Yeah.
I wanted to tell you.
We've been laughing at you for like 6 weeks.
No, with cause.
Well, needless to say, beyond that, the writing is excellent.
Yeah.
No errors.
That was the one.
That was the one error.
That's the one.
Let's get into some of the nuts and bolts of you guys. For those of you out there who don't know Brandon and Stip. So I want you to each kind of briefly explain your role on the website, and then a brief personal discovery story of Pearl Jam. And Brandon, we'll start with you because you're the newest one here.
Yeah. So at the skyscrape.com, it's just I started like you did as joining a message board with just people that could chat about the Pearl Jam and everything. And at some point, I don't know, it had to be early 2000s. Pearl Jam was so bad at putting news out, right? They'd release stuff and no one would even know it got released, or there's something cool would happen, and this stuff was scattered all over the place. And we had this little website, like the front page to our forum, and it had a news section that never got updated. And at some point I said, hey guys, I got enough time to kind of like grab these little pieces of news out of our forum and post it there so we can, put news out and stuff like that. And so they said, well, we can do that, but you got to be a moderator on our forum to give you the right access, which was, I don't know, that was weird. So I started moderating the forum, and 20 years down the line, somehow now I own this website and can't get away from moderating it. Just kind of, some people called me the Illuminati to Pearl Jam, which was funny because Pearl Jam doesn't even know I exist at all.
Hold on, I need to interject real quick, Brandon.
Yes.
So you're telling me that you were just some guy on the boards, and then you offered up your services to kind of run the day-to-day news portion of it, and in that, it sounds like Red Mosquito forums came before the website, or am I wrong?
I think the website was there and it died at one point, and it was just sitting inactive for years and years by the time I came along. Now it's harder because Pearl Jam's pretty good at putting their news out, and frankly, you guys are really good at it too. So it's hard to keep up with stuff. I do work a day job. And so it is. It's tough to stay on top of stuff. And now Pearl Jam, they're on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and
it's called Xer. We must bow to our new Department of Government Efficiency overlord, Elon Musk.
Don't report me to government efficiency. But
by the way, 2 heads of that department. That's how efficient they are. Sorry, people who don't like politics. Anyways, wait. So Brandon, what's your quick discovery story of Pearl Jam?
Oh, okay. I went camping with some friends. Pearl Jam had been around for a while at that point, I think, and I hadn't paid much attention to them. And one of the girls we were camping with is like, "You need to hear this album." And that was back in the days of CD Walkman. So I had to go off in a corner, put the headphones on, and play that CD. And man, that was life changing. I never heard anything like that at that point.
Which album?
Oh, that was 10. Yeah,
Oh.
I wasn't that far behind.
Okay,
They've been
all right,
around for
sorry.
a little bit, but I still found them before Versus. I'm sure I had heard "Smells Like Teen Spirit" at that point, and
We don't refer to that song on this show.
Well, if it means anything, I didn't think that was my jam.
Okay.
But the even flow just kind of woke me up to a new way of thinking, and I had that album memorized in a week, and I was singing every word of it. Just at the end of the week, I took her CD. She never got it back.
Do you still have it?
No, I sold it. Well, I had to go through a long, I went to college after that. I had to get new CDs, but they've done reissues. No, I don't.
I'll tell you
have that
what,
original
Paul still
CD.
has his original Versus CD, and it smells like the cologne he spilled on it. So
Yeah.
Is it in the
memories.
like half cardboard digipack thing? Eco pack? Oh, that's
That's a story for a later day. But yes,
or go back 3 episodes.
correct.
So Stip, I feel like we kind of got your story, but we interviewed you fucking years ago. So remind the people what your
real
origin story
quick,
was. Yeah.
I found actually the Skyscrape first, I think in the early 2000s, looking for lyrics. Found the forum probably sometime around Riot Act. Was posting pretty regularly. There was a series of posts called Song of the Moment that I started writing, longer, thematic, song analyses posts for. And the self-titled record was coming out. They were expecting a lot more traffic, and they're like, "Oh, hey, you post here pretty regularly. You're not a jerk to people. Do you want to be a moderator?" So I said, "Sure." And that was 2006.
Who asked you,
started then.
Brandon?
No. I think I predate Brandon. As far as that goes, not on the board per se, but at least moderating. But then at some point, Brandon took over the actual website, and then I had been doing on the message boards those longer album guided tours. And then
Right.
Brandon's like, "Hey, do you mind if I put this stuff up on the Skyscrape?" I said, "Sure," and that was that.
Okay.
Fantastic.
And then I found Pearl Jam because I was upgrading from tapes to CDs. I liked Nevermind, and I had one more free CD from Columbia House, and I heard Pearl Jam sounded like Nirvana. I'll give them a try. Same thing with Brandon. Like, I don't really have a memory of once, but the first time, like within seconds of hearing Even Flow, it's like, all right, that's it. That's the band. Whatever this is what I've been waiting for.
Okay.
How about that? All right.
Let's dive into this here because Jason and I have been reading Stip's song reviews, for quite a long time on the Sky I Scrape, but found them both inspiring and quite illuminating. And we can now thank Eddie's inconsistencies with enunciation for Stip actually going to the internet for lyrics that ultimately led to this. Right. But I have to ask you guys about this book, just pulling out some snippets, some quotes, ask you guys to expand on them. Let's give the listener, the viewer out there, a nice amuse-bouche, as Jason likes to call it, of what your book has to offer. Does that sound like a plan?
Sure.
All right. We're going to start with an easy one before we dive into the existential madness that is I Am No Guide, Pearl Jam song by song. If someone chooses Better Man, quote, if someone chooses Better Man for the first dance of their wedding, they probably missed the point. But beyond that, the listener's experience of a song is real and true to them. What then is the best song for a first dance?
A Pearl Jam song?
Yes.
No, fucking Nirvana. Come on, Stip.
All right, well, I didn't want to paint Brandon into that corner. It's got to be Just Breathe, right?
It's a good one.
Which
Is that-
unfortunately
is that
wasn't
the,
out for my wedding.
Is that I'm a lucky man to count on both hands? The ones, yeah. You can't beat that one.
Try to sound authoritative here.
I guess. I don't know.
Wait a minute.
Pearl Jam?
Pearl Jam. Is there an E at the end of the jam? What is that?
Future Days is very sweet, but it's a little too settled for a first wedding dance song.
Hey. Easy.
Is that what you used?
Yes,
That's mine.
It was.
How long were you dating?
We had been dating for 2.5 years.
All right, that's a little bit of time. Future Days, at least to me, and maybe this is just when it came out in my own life, it felt more like a settled relationship song. in a way that like Just Breathe had.
Are
like
you
that
saying that
new
I
love
settled
discovery.
for my wife, Stip? That's very
I'm
rude.
saying by the time you got married, you were so locked into her that it felt like forever.
There you go.
Wait, so Brandon, what did you
I
say?
assume she doesn't listen to this.
She does. Hi, babe.
Oh, I don't think I can improve on Stip's answer. I mean,
No?
No. That line was written by him, and I'm going to leave that answer to him. I would, I agree with Just Breathe. I mean, that's my first dance was Red Hot Chili Peppers, but
Suck My Kiss?
no, it was Love Roller Coaster. But you know,
Okay.
I didn't get to make those choices at my wedding.
Oh, okay,
I don't know
fair
about
enough.
you guys.
That was the one choice I insisted
There was never going
on.
to be a Pearl Jam song at my wedding.
I'm kind of with Stip. I was kind of like, I don't care about anything but like the song that we dance to and the song that we come out to. That's it.
Yeah.
And we got to have a band. I didn't want to DJ. I had to have a
Same
band.
thing. Same thing. Those are my two. And I
Paul
bought
is
the
there. Paul
cupcakes.
knows.
Those are my
was
three.
there. I officiated
You
that.
guys are
that
much
bad boy.
That's
older
true.
in your relationships than I am.
Do you guys know Paul officiated my wedding?
I did. Well, I know now. As of 10 seconds ago, I knew that.
Yeah, don't we all know now?
There you go, internet.
I
By the
still
way,
have the card, by the way. If you guys ever want to do the dance again, let me know. I'll be there in a heartbeat to officiate
Fair
that
enough.
bad boy.
Okay.
Go back and do this right the next time.
I'll tell you what, 10-year.
Yeah, we just lost
maybe-
2 listeners, Mrs. Stippleman.
By the way, I want to point out to our watching audience on YouTube that Paul, I believe, is drinking a Caucasian.
Hey, that's like your opinion, man.
Paul is channeling his inner Jeff Whitman right now.
Yeah.
Go back and check out that video.
That it is.
I got that
Jason.
reference.
That it is.
White Russians, for those who are not in the know. Okay, another quote for you. Here we go. Their music processes anger, grief, and disappointment over our personal and shared failure to live up to our expectations for each other and ourselves. Can each of you pinpoint a song or two that illustrates this the best?
You can
We will
clip
edit
this
out
time.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
trying to pick the right answer here.
gonna be
So
great
I'll
in
go
post.
with the one that jumped out to me immediately. I don't know if this is the best answer, but the one that I thought of first was "Mind Your Manners."
Ooh.
The way that's always felt to me like the sort of the second generation, like we now have children. It's not just about us anymore. The world belongs to a larger, we have a larger field of vision for the world than we did before.
Mm.
And we're still not the people that we're supposed to be.
Wow.
Like this world's a long love letter that makes me want to cry.
Ugh.
Personal failures. I don't know.
Well, I would argue that right now we collectively have a hard time. We have an easy time failing at accepting each other for who we are.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a song on Dark Matter that speaks to that, or Gigaton. Really, I'll let you ruminate on it. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Okay, this one here is from 10. Every moment swings for the fences and exults in the opportunity bearing the weight of a lifetime of things to say and only one chance to say them. There is a freedom when you are writing music for your first album. Okay. It's the first published music that anyone's ever heard you make before. So which album after 10 do you think Pearl Jam felt the most free?
I want to say like No Code, because that's kind of where like
Ooh, interesting.
Think about when you heard who. I want to sound authoritative, and I know I'm going to get the name of the song wrong. Like Who You Are, where that think about when that came out. Everyone was like, "This is absolutely not pro." They lost half their fan base for a while when that song hit because that was just, we've got this new sound that we are going to put out and we don't care how people accept it. Here, check out this first single. And they were just going to do what they wanted to do. And they didn't care anymore. I mean, that was the whole point of the title of the album too. They were done. They were free. This is what we do. I think even more so than the Avocado album. When they put that out, it was we've become who we're going to be, and we're going to record what we want to record. And here, deal with it. Listen to this.
Stip, do you agree, or do you want to go later in the
No,
countdown?
I mean, Avocado's a really good answer. No Code's a really good answer. I'll throw out Dark Matter as well.
Wow, okay.
Only because it feels like it was the most instinctive record, at least in the recording process, that we know of. I mean, they don't talk about their process that often, where it's like, we're just going to come in, we're going to play, and these songs are going to be birthed together rather than something that somebody writes and then the rest of us sort of engineer. So, I mean, I'll throw that out for consideration too. But I mean, No Code and Avocado are good answers.
I thought you might say, maybe even Backspacer. There was a freedom, and we'll get to some Backspacer questions in a little bit, but obviously they felt free, or Ed felt free to not have to talk about certain things. Anyway, we'll get there.
Mm-hmm. Before we get there, we're going Vitalogy. Yes. You guys brought it up. Let's talk about that cologne-soaked album right now. Vitalogy grapples.
I thought it was verses, Paul.
No, we're
something Vitalogy too.
How many albums?
It's Vitalogy. Honestly, there's 3 or 4 albums actually.
It was my new album ritual. I had to get that new Pearl Jam smell.
But Vitalogy, it carries the scent heavily. Let's put it that. So that album grapples with the consequences of turning us. I'm quoting you here. That album grapples with the consequences of turning a subject into an object, the objectification of art and artist. And you ended that paragraph quoting Eddie, shortly after Kurt Cobain's death, responding to a woman who yelled, "I love you" from the crowd. Now, Ed famously says in that moment, "You don't love me, just the image you've created of me." Brad Clausen told us recently that even when he's hung out with Eddie over the years, there'd be 2 versions of him. There's the regular Ed and the amongst all the fans and media Ed. But clearly he's able to balance the 2 now. When you think, based on the music and the lyrics, Ed finally found that balance, do you think that? Or is there a song or 2 that maybe sticks out as like a telling sign?
On Vitalogy or?
Yeah, like when do you think?
Anywhere.
Well, I mean, when you reflect back on Pearl Jam's music, is there a moment based on the music and lyrics that Ed has produced that he seemingly finally found that balance between those 2 selves?
You want to take that one, Brandon?
Well, yeah, I was thinking when Backspacer came out, I think it was Jeff. It was an interview with Jeff that he was talking about after Into the Wild. And if you can hear that album all throughout Backspacer, and he was just talking about, once we started to release some solo albums and we heard Ed's solo album, it was kind of like, oh, that's your voice. That's what's been trying to get out the whole time. And they embraced that. And I think that's kind of the easy answer because Jeff kind of handed it to me. But I feel like that's probably the album where Ed became free to be. Ed's sound actually came out more. I mean, his lyrics, he'd been writing the lyrics for several albums at that point, most of the lyrics for several albums at that point. But that was the one that most musically became him, and he expressed himself more through the band. And from then on, he's almost been undistinguishable. If you pull out Earthling, there you could pull half those songs off that album and call, that's a Pearl Jam song. That's a Pearl Jam song. So it's harder to flesh out where Ed ends and Pearl Jam begins since Backspacer.
Stip, what do you make of that? What do you make of how you think about, the guy that wrote Lucan, right? He had to be super guarded. And then there was the guy that was on stage who could be this different version of himself. What point does he find that balance?
Let me answer this a little bit differently, and then also, recognize, the work that Brandon did curating the essential live performances that we have.
That's our next question. We'll get to
All
that.
right, so let me segue that then.
Beautiful.
I'm going to say it's the 2003 tour rather than an album. I feel like Eddie's interactions in that live space that really came to define the band. Like 2003 is when he doesn't feel guarded to me anymore, where he feels comfortable that he's able to just enjoy the moment and that it's not about him showing up to deliver intensity or, a certain performative vision of who Eddie Vedder is. And it's just, I am here making music with my friends in a room full of people who are, here to make it with me. And I'm just going to sit back and enjoy that moment. And I feel like that's the music fan side of him. That's the part of him where music is part of his identity. It's healing, it's generative. I feel like that really came to the fore and sort of dominated not only just the way we see him live, but the way at least it appears that he would finally became comfortable in his own skin.
Stip, do you think the success or lack thereof of Binaural, the preceding album, may have had something to do with that?
I think it's probably. I mean, if we want to trace this back to Binaural, maybe it's the post, Roskilde, like I'm going to rethink what really matters. I'm going to be grateful for the chance to be here and alive with other people in this kind of space. Because it's not like Riot Act was I think Riot Act sold worse than Binaural, if I recall. Yeah. The Binaural tour was still, wildly successful. The bootlegs were hugely successful. And so Riot Act, if that was a record that was designed to prove something, that Binaural didn't do, if anything, it leans in a slightly different way into the darkness and the heaviness and the inscrutability of Binaural. If the Avocado record immediately followed, I would agree. But Riot Act never felt like a reaction to Binaural to me.
Okay.
And I do feel that there's a light, and this might just reflect the fact that I liked the shows I saw in 03 better than 2000 maybe, but it felt like there was a lightness or a playfulness to 03. Like, like the Eddie, like the nice guy, the funny guy, the unguarded Eddie that people would sometimes talk about that was no way a part of his public persona. That feels like that comes out more in 2003 than 2000.
Right. That makes sense. I have to ask you, Brandon, because our show for a number of years had featured and will continue to feature the live cut of the week. And, notably for our listeners and viewers, I put up very, very specific guardrails for myself where it had to be the best version of that song from the tour of the album from whence it came. And that made it challenging, but it also made it easier for me to kind of curate these things because I wasn't going through 300 versions of a song. But I have to ask, 'cause I mean, let's talk a little bit about the entries of each song for a minute. You have writing credits, live debut, and then, interestingly, these notable live performances. We understand that this was primarily, Brandon, your job, right?
Yeah.
So how did you scout all these performances and whittle them down to essentially what amounts to a handful for each song?
Yeah, the terminology is important. We went back and forth on this. This took the heat off me a little bit. We went with notable performances, right?
Okay.
Because there were, and I don't claim that these are the best. A lot of them are. And heck, if you're talking about best, we started pulling from certain shows. Like I had to start clearing a couple out. Like, we have a few too many from that Orpheus show, or pick something else out. Where, like, if we're going to do that, you might as well just play the whole Orpheus show and say all of these are the best version of these songs, because they could be. So, yeah, I went with notable because and a lot of these, the other thing we discovered is I enjoy when they screw up. And a lot of people don't. A lot of people, they get a bootleg and they're mad. The band they sang the wrong lyric, Ed sang the wrong lyrics, or they missed this cue, or geez, what was the show Stip and I were at in Madison Square Gardens? They really screwed the hell out of Love Boat Captain. That's great. That's my favorite. I love it. Because you don't get. I could hear them play it perfectly on the album over and over. So notable performances to me are just that. Check this song out. You might like it. Maybe you won't. I don't claim it's the best, but I'd say with each of these, the best one's in there somewhere. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, to your point about the word notable, it's like, sometimes You have a performance and an interaction with a crowd that makes it memorable, and it's not always the most perfected execution of the song. And the easiest example that comes to mind is Nassau Coliseum and Bush Leaguer. Probably not the best performance of the song, but very notable.
Mm-hmm.
So to go through the book and to pull out, Thin Air from Milan in 2000 and also Zagreb, Croatia, 2006, it's like, like why did they think that? And now I want to go and listen to those versions because it's like they've picked those out for a reason. And so now that makes me intrigued because if I'm a super fan and I'm going to buy this book, I probably have an idea of like maybe the best version, or maybe you listen to our show and you've heard our best version. It's like, this is just another excuse to go back and kind of deep dive on some of those bootlegs we haven't heard in a while. So.
Yeah, we have a couple members on our board that have put together like best of tour shows or best of albums, and they don't do that by themselves. They post on the board and like, hey, we're putting this together, and people start debating, well, what's the best version of that song, and I read so much of our board that I had never even dug into before, just to find like every mention of the song and someone said, this is the version for me, or I like this version, or I love this version, and this is why I like that, and that is why I like this. And I got a little notebook here, and I wrote every song out in it, and then just filled it with like this was this show, this date, this venue, this date, this venue, and started
Was that
whittling
the pencil
down
you
from
used,
there.
by the way?
This is not the pencil I use, just the pencil.
I was going to say, from this pen to that pencil, much love. That one, we'll take that.
Well, you know what? How cool is it to have basically a crowdsourced portion of the book?
Yes.
To have the community, have the hardcores chime in, have their voices heard. I love that aspect of this.
Yeah. If you love the choices, Stip and I picked them. If they're not yours, say some other idiot.
Blame the fandom.
I really want to call out some usernames that I remember from the old days, and the only one I can come up with is Cut Up Half Dead. I apologize. It's not your fault, or it is your fault. Credit, fault, same word.
That Zagreb Thin Air was from her. So
no, she chose. Maybe that one, but she chose Braina J.
Got it. Okay.
One of the Braina J performances in Hawaii.
Let's scoot to the Backspacer chapter.
A lightning rod in the Pearl Jam community.
Yes, but Stip's
putting on his fighting gloves right now.
Yeah. no fighting today. Here's a line that I like. Gonna see my friend explores familiar feelings in a new way, focusing on the release rather than the burden. Stip, Brandon.
Yes.
It cannot be so simple as to say that Ed felt relieved to be rid of George Bush. So why do you think Ed felt empowered to be more blatantly optimistic? Or is it that simple?
I think it might be that simple. I think it's, think about how you felt that knowing your politics.
Yeah.
When you woke up the morning of November 7th, imagine carrying that feeling for 8 years. Only watching it get worse and worse. And then when you can finally put it down, how is that going to sort of like reimagine, recenter all of your old familiar feelings? How relieved are you going to be to not have to talk about this person anymore? Even if you're leaning into some like traditional like grungy tropes, and Gonna See My Friend starts out, it's bright, but like the chorus is this like angrier, like chugging traditional grunge kind of song, but it's flipping it, and it's about that ecstatic feeling of release, relief, of just feeling better. I think that's that, plus the putting George Bush aside, and that really brief window, it did not last long, a couple months tops, where Obama came in and there was this sense that maybe things are going to be different now. Maybe we've turned the page as a nation. Maybe we are about to awaken into our better selves. Like, that didn't happen, but we thought it was going to happen, or at least people within Pearl Jam's orbit thought it would have happened. And I think that's the space that Backspacer is coming from. It's that release of that breath that you've been holding in, and you're so excited to release it that you don't even have time to think about it. It's like in some ways it's their most instinctual album. It's the one that they overthought the least. And towards the end, I mean, like one of your guys' favorite songs, when the end comes on, it starts to come back down to earth towards the end when you realize, maybe this feeling isn't going to last forever. Maybe this doesn't have the permanence that it feels like in this moment, transitioning into the third stage of their career. But for most of the album, I think it might just be that simple.
Why didn't we get a post-Trump optimistic album, or is that what you would call dark matter?
Well, it's interesting you ask that question. Perfect segue. You know what? You're doing my job for me here, Brandon. So
I know. I'm gonna. Can I interview Stip for a minute here? You guys mind?
Look, let's stay on that song. Let's stay on that song for a second.
Yeah.
Again, quote: "There is no need to retreat to dark places when things are rough. We finally have somewhere better to go and someone waiting for us there." End quote. Considering recent events, do we still have somewhere better to go? And is anybody else waiting for us there?
God, ask me that in 4 years. There is. I think Pearl Jam's music holds, at its core, the belief that we can be better than we are, that we can be better than the world often allows us to be. But I don't think there was ever a promise that this is only going to be this uninterrupted forward progression. I think the challenge then becomes, we're lost again. We've been lost before. Mm-hmm. It's always tempting to think in the.
Well, you're no guide. End of episode.
No. So I don't know why you're listening to me on any of this.
Buy their book.
But maybe Eddie is. That Backspacer is a good example of this. Like in the moment, you feel like it's going to last forever. Like that horizon stretches out as far as you can see. It doesn't break. And it's sunny the whole way down. But we know that the world doesn't work that way. That it could be raining tomorrow, even though the sun feels like it's gonna last forever. I think the key is that when you had those earlier moments, like the binaural Riot Act, Clinton malaise, early George Bush era, it wasn't clear how you find your way out of it. Much of Pearl Jam's early writing was like, we know there's something better than this. We haven't figured out what it is yet, but we're looking, and we want you to come look with us, and maybe we'll find it together, or at least we won't be alone while we're searching. And they find it at some point, like in their personal lives and the peace they'd made with their journey, the families that they had built, the stability and the security and the serenity that they found there. And even when the world then moved in to disrupt that, and the Obama years were difficult, and there's moments of this in an album like Lightning Bolt, like Infallible is a song that grapples with this exact tension. Mm-hmm. Like the verses of Infallible are they like, how could we be making these mistakes again? Why do we not learn? Why do we ignore them? But then there's that hope in the chorus: we can be better. We're not right now. We're not our best selves, but we could be, and we're more likely to be if we lift each other up doing it.
Brandon,
and
hold on.
Stop me.
So you're talking about this belief that they felt that they had this belief, right? I think about Not For You. Dedication's naive and true. Are they just being naive? Are we hopeful in the face of a relentless pursuit by some to exploit people? Anybody want to take that one?
I don't know if this is going to directly answer your question, but building off of what Stip's talking about is, the band is, when they started expanding into music about their family and their relationships, it became easier to be optimistic, and that's where a lot of that angst started to fall off. Mm-hmm. They still record political songs, and they're still upset about things that happen in politics, but they, and I think the same thing all of us did, because you guys went political, so I will too. We wake up Wednesday morning after the election. Family, man, I can't. How are we going to live in this world like this? Well, we're going to live off our relationships, our family, our friends, the same way we always did. That's where we find solace and we find optimism. And I think that's where the band does too. And that's why you see more songs about family through each of their albums as they progress on. It becomes more about relationships and the renewing nature. Goes. Yeah.
I was just going to say, Paul, it feels like, and Brandon, you're hitting nail on the head, I think, in that they take that energy and now it's become an even greater appreciation for the greater family, which is the fan base. And there's okay, listen, we're down right now, but there are great numbers. And as you see at shows, Paul, my kids went to their first Pearl Jam show just a couple of months ago. There is another generation. And if we all teach them right, if we right, but if we all teach them correctly to be empathetic and good citizens, that maybe there is a chance. And that leads me into something here. One more question from Backspacer, which I know Stip is very excited about. And Stip, you alluded to this, and I'm going to bring it up. Here's a quote. Eddie sang on Breath, "If I knew where it was, I would take you there. There's much more than this." Backspacer inhabits the place he was searching for and celebrates both the experience of arriving and not having arrived alone. If Avocado captures the sound of a Pearl Jam concert, Backspacer embodies the feeling. I don't think that I've ever heard Backspacer as the place or general feeling that Eddie is fantasizing about in Breath. Please elaborate on this because I like it.
The ending of Breath, even though it's in some ways it's formless and it's in the void and it's looking for something. It's casting out a line, into the ether, hoping to snag something. There is this optimism to the end of Breath, which maybe isn't there in the studio version of Alive. Alive has the catharsis, but it's a catharsis that comes from endurance. It's as I'm still here and I haven't given up yet, and it's coming from a place of you haven't beaten me down. Whereas Breath feels optimistic in a way that Alive doesn't. At least Alive initially didn't. Live it transforms. There's much more than this. The confidence and the surety and the certainty that Eddie sings it with, I think is important there. And I'm Still Alive on the album. It's a solo sentiment. It's existential. It's alone. And Breath's is I would take you there. The whole point of Breath, that whole song, is that you're never alone. It's about people coming together. It's about the possibility and the freedom and the release of being with somebody, even while you're looking. And that's always there. I think I probably say this somewhere in the book. If not, I should have. But the thing that really struck me when we sat in to put all this together was how that sense of community, that longing, that love has always been there from the beginning. In some early songs, it's defined by its loss and its absence and the negative space that it creates, the sense that something's been taken from you that you deserve. As they get older, and I think this really starts to come to the fore in Backspacer, but it's traced out in every album afterwards. It's much more prevalent. It's much more upfront. It's not that the songs are happier, but they recognize that this is about we. Not about you, not about me. It's about us together. This, you've heard me wax rhapsodic about Waiting for Stevie before, but I think that's what that gets right. That it encapsulates so well, that you find that it's the need for love and the ability to be that love for other people that defines our humanity, that defines our journey.
And Backspacer is all of that in one album.
It's that moment. I think it's the moment that you first realize it in that one album. It doesn't necessarily sustain it, and I think an album like Dark Matter explores it in more depth and detail. But I think Backspacer captures for that second, holy shit, this is it. Like if you put all these pieces together, this is what we were looking for.
Okay.
Stip, I think that's definitely in the book, but the editor might not have let you have as many words.
Yeah. No, this is what you guys are holding is the abridged version. there was a lot.
It's volume 1, right? Buy enough of these, you could have volume 2.
This could have been twice as long without breaking a sweat.
Hey, we asked Brad Clausen the same thing about his tome over here. Is this part 1 of part 2? And so, do you guys foresee an addendum to this in the future?
Well, I think that really depends on your listeners and how many copies they buy.
Good answer.
Very early on in our discussion with the publishers, was they're like, well, we envision this book and it's however many words and whatnot, and they're like, and Stip goes, I did the math on what I've written so far, and I think we could probably write 4 times that much. And we're like, can we have more words? Like,
settle down, Tolkien.
In the end, they met us halfway. They gave us some more words.
But yeah, there's more to come. I mean, if nothing else, we'll rip apart Lost Dogs and everything. The back of the book has a list of every song we didn't get to talk about. And that doesn't include Ed's solo. We'll have to flesh it out with some of Ed's solo work. But
we will be back for the next album to say, hey, can we put out a second edition? Here's some more stuff.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, let's stick on the albums you did cover. Let's specifically go to Riot Act. Again, quote, while there are a few overly political songs on Riot Act, the entire personal journey grapples with the possibility that the world has become a fundamentally hostile place. Riot Act is not a cynical record, but it struggles to be hopeful in toxic times. We just did a show on Riot Act to celebrate that record passing its 22nd anniversary, and we reviewed it again as an album, each song, and we thought about it in the context of today's political landscape. How are you guys feeling about this record in these, quote, toxic times, end quote?
Angry that it's relevant. I mean, you guys put up a great review of it, and I was really struck by like, oh shit, it's the same thing, but it feels even worse. If you were politically active in 2000, especially post 9/11, like the United States was not recognizable. And you found spaces where it could be. If you went to go protest the Iraq War, if you're part of the protests in 2004 when the Republican National Convention was held in New York, Pearl Jam shows, maybe accepting Uniondale. Like you were there with people just to remind yourself that you're not alone. But the rest of the time, like you really felt alienated from the world around you. Like Bush had like an 85, 90% approval rating, and this person was a monster. And the fact that it's been 20 plus years and we've kind of forgotten about it doesn't change the fact that that's how many people felt in the moment, and was true. And like, we're right back, with this. And like, Trump is almost too big to wrap your mind around. He's totalizing in a way that like even beyond how I think Bush felt in 2022. But the difference between Riot Act and the Avocado record is Riot Act couldn't wrap its arms around the immensity of the problem, and so just sort of wandered around it, not being able to fully articulate, even though there's a song called Bush Leaguer. It's why it ends with a song like All or None, and it's why the Avocado record is so immediately pointed, and like a song like Worldwide Suicide, comes on right. It's the single.
Yeah. Brandon, so how do you feel? That's a good point. How do you feel about Riot Act now, considering the two political landscapes when it was released and where we are now? But also, how does it make you think about what the next Pearl Jam record could be, considering?
Yeah, I'm right there with Steve. As he was talking, like I was just remembering like an echo of feeling that I had. I remember exactly where I was the day we bombed Iraq, because I was in a crowded bar, and I'm a pretty pacifist person. I didn't think war was the right way to go, and we started dropping those bombs, and it was just like, this is not the way I want things to go. And I'm sitting in this bar, and every other person in this bar is cheering at the TV as those bombs drop. And I felt so isolated. I'm like, I am clearly not where the rest of my countrymen are, where the people, I'm in this country, and I am not the person. I'm not jiving with these other folks. And I felt that exact same feeling waking up Wednesday morning, that like the world is not how I thought it was, and I am not here with the rest. I don't have the camaraderie that I thought I had. It was the exact same feeling. I never can seem to predict where Pearl Jam is going to be. I know Brian and I went, Stip and I went back and forth. You guys really threw me off on that. I had no idea he goes by Stip all the time. Anyhow, we've gone back and forth on Dark Matter a lot. I have had the hardest time connecting with that album. But maybe I kind of had I enjoyed Backspacer a lot more than I enjoyed Avocado, at least at the start. I think I probably flipped those at this point, but it makes me optimistic that they're going to put out a stronger rocker, more positive album that's really going to he's going to eat me alive for calling Dark Matter not positive, but I've got hopes for the kind of music that comes pouring out after this. Maybe it's back to anger. I can't wait. Maybe I need it.
That was kind of where I was thinking, is that, listen, if it's a reaction to, if it's a more pointed reaction. I mean, I thought Dark Matter was pretty pointed and musically speaking, but who knows what's going to happen.
Pearl Jam takes 5 years between albums. It's likely we'll be in a new administration by the time we get our next Pearl Jam album.
but the writing may be happening now. The way that Stone has talked about how he loved how quick that went with Andrew Watt, you never know.
Yeah, maybe.
There's no dates.
We're
in the book
talking
next
about
year.
a band that threw a whole album in the garbage prior to Gigaton. Who knows what we missed out on? The original Gigaton.
A whole album of Cantonitis.
I look forward to the 2045 box set.
It couldn't have all been Can't Deny Me.
No. All right, let's move over to a happier record. I think Yield. You guys talk about Yield within the context of the leaving the no code and Ticketmaster battle behind them, and quote, making peace with the world and carving out their space in it. So considering how personal much of the early records were and how macro many of the themes were on the next few records, how do you view Yield and that statement in particular, considering how hard it's been to remain at peace with the world and all of our places in it since?
You want to jump in?
No, go ahead.
One of the things that I think is really fascinating about Yield as an album is it feels like it's lying to itself. At least that's that's what I argue in the book.
Because they don't do what they say they're going to do.
And I don't think it works for them.
I'm not trying to make a difference, and they've continued to try to make a difference.
Like it's no crime. It's no crime to escape. Which is like the first time they're specifically. Maybe it's the first time they're specifically referencing a prior lyric, like the escape is never the safest path, safest place, and they're kind of trying it out on Yield. Like, what if this isn't our problem? What if the world is messed up enough that the best that we can do is just find our own little space within it and stop pushing back against everything so goddamn hard. What if we just played Ticketmaster venues so we could have fun, playing some shows? What if we didn't have to attach our name to every cause and we just carved out our little peaceful space for ourselves? But it doesn't work because the rest of the world intrudes in on that space, and I think they know it. Like, they're trying ideas on in songs like In Hiding that they don't stick with. And I mean, I think if they find the peace they're looking for in Yield, it's not followed by an album like Binaural, which feels like so alienated, so lost, so hollow. Backspacer, in some respects, I think realizes in full what Yield was grasping for, and maybe even feeling like wanted to be. Almost like we've earned this. Why can't we have this peace? But they don't really feel it yet. And I think if you listen to Yield with that in mind, there's a really cool tension underneath so many of those songs, like the sense in which we're saying this because we're trying to convince ourselves that it's true. We want it to be true, but in our heart of hearts, we don't really believe it. At least not yet.
Brandon,
I feel like this moment whenever we were writing this book, I always felt like the need to I listen to Stip for a while, I read to some of it, and I'm like, it sounds like you're saying that yield is the denial and binaural is the reality smacking them back in the face. There's what, 500 words in a sentence for you there, Stip. You can, but I mean, that's, how could I improve upon that? I mean, that's exactly it's weird how you can see the band's life reflected. That's kind of where this whole book goes. I mean, we will take you, I say we, Brian did a lot of this, Stip did a lot of this writing, and, really takes you through a tour of how their life changes with each album. It's an era, not just for us. We think of these albums as eras, but these albums are just a demonstration of the era that is Pearl Jam's life.
I want to harp on that concept of we for a second.
Yeah.
So let's go to your introduction. Quote, Pearl Jam understands that true solidarity cannot have an us and a them, and thus Pearl Jam is the rock and roll manifestation of we. Jason mentioned something at the end of last week's retro review of Riot Act that in the wake of Trump winning another term as president, he was surprised to find that there were in fact some fans of the band that actually support Trump. What can you say about Pearl Jam's music that is a thing, right? That there is an us and them, but also a we, if that makes sense?
That's a hard question to answer a week after the election where I'm not in a particularly charitable mood. If
Pearl Jam's music
go ahead.
Life. Yeah. I mean, it's
Go, Brandon.
They put some politics in there and we see them, but if you're not looking for them, their music is also about life. There are plenty of songs in there about anger and relationships and love and every part of life, and that connects with a Trump fan as much as it connects with us. We may not like the politics of the nation right now, but everyone that voted for Trump has the exact same feelings that we have, and that's what Pearl Jam taps into. Like they might release Bush Leaguer, but that wasn't a big moneymaker. What's the big moneymaker are the ones that really tap into how people feel.
The songs that tap into the things that all of us cannot deny, pun not intended, that we have inside of us. And that is the desire for inclusion, the desire for accompaniment, a desire to be loved, to have the opportunity to love. Those are the things that permeate so many of the songs. And that's
universal.
That's the thing that
no matter art imitates life, right? And the Pearl Jam experience is an innate reflection of human nature in a lot of ways.
And they're a humanist band. Like, they are believers in the power of our better angels and the shared humanity that unites us and what we can do with that power if we embrace it. Eddie doesn't rant about politics in the same way that he used to. I think in part, because he recognizes, like, what does that division get us? Like, other than feeling slightly self-satisfied in the moment. And, I had plenty of, angry ranting, posts on Facebook and trying to not do it on Twitter because we're trying to sell a book, and in, conversations with friends and family and coworkers and colleags.
If only there was a safe place called Discord that you could
a little less charitable there for the Patreons. But, it's in the end, if we can't recognize that shared humanity within each other, we're fucked. There is no way forward without positing that as the place that everything has to begin. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason why they have so many conservative fans as well as people who share their politics is because they're speaking to that need that does cut across most political views, most political divisions, where the stuff that divides us is really the how do we get there in the end, not where do we want to be.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that liberals and conservatives can come together behind Pearl Jam's music. In our forum, we have a news and debate space, and the person I fight with more than anyone in that space, when we're going to the same Pearl Jam show, we shoot some texts and we go find a bar and we sit down and have a beer.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, we're just agreed. Like we're not going to talk politics for an hour. We're just going to enjoy a beer, talk Pearl Jam, and then we're going to go enjoy a show. We're going to text about how awesome it was after the fact. Yeah, and then we get back home and we hate each other again. But Pearl Jam's music is a bridge for us at least once a tour.
Okay, I love that. Let's end on a more lighthearted one, shall we? At the end of the book, you each give your album rankings with favorite song and in quotations. And I won't give away the whole thing, but you both have Verses and Vitalogy in your top 3. Brandon, you have No Code up there as well, while Stip has it way down. So please discuss why you cannot agree on No Code, and what do you have to say, Stip, to the millions around the world who believe it to be their best record?
You want to defend? Go ahead and defend it first.
I was just going to say, if we could agree on anything, we wouldn't have 500,000 posts in our Pearl Jam forum online. You know, a lot of it has to do with where you are when you heard the albums too, and clearly Stip and I were in different places when No Code hit.
That's well said, Brandon.
Yeah, it should be lower for me because I remember that tour was impossible to get tickets for, and I hated the band, and I wanted them. I'm never going to listen to this band again. It's ridiculous. I should be able to see this show. I don't care about Ticketmaster or any of that stuff. And I lined right back up for the midnight sale for Yield. So we're just, I don't know why I like it. So I can't tell you. I mean, I can tell you some reasons why I like it, but I have a hard time putting into words why I love it. So I totally don't understand why Stip hates it.
So hate's a strong word.
Hates it.
No, hate's a strong word.
Where did you put it in the list?
The lowest. Oh, I didn't even mention it.
Page
I was so
134.
disgusted by it.
I fucking hate No Code.
No, look. One of the things that we tried to do, and this is where Brandon was really helpful. He kept me honest. Is we tried to strip our opinions from this as much as possible and treat each song on its own terms, how it wanted to understand itself. You know, I was one of the people who would have been happy to have Pearl Jam remake 10. I wasn't one of the people who got off the bus with No Code, but I understood why people did. And I always assumed that the No Code was an outlier album. And when I got online and I found Red Mosquito and there was just people like defending No Code, I used to think they were trolling. Or like there was just this one person who is this outlier who felt that No Code was somehow better than 10.
All these burner accounts.
Right. And then it's like suddenly, oh, wait, I'm the outlier. Like for the people who are still with them, like the folks who wanted 10 largely got off, and that I'm like holding this torch for this this era of the band that the rest of the fan base had moved on to. And it was when you realize, okay, this is going to be a community of people that I can talk about this stuff with, argue about this stuff with, learn from for as long as there's a band, because there's the rest of the fan base is not like me. And
did that shape did that shape your review of Sometimes, where I remember you describing that song as like being invited into a tent at a campfire?
Chances are pretty good. That's my description of Sometimes. Like I think I call it an anti-prayer at some point.
Yeah.
And I'm 90% sure that description came from somebody on Red Mosquito. It would have had to.
Sometimes is best understood as an anti-prayer. It reproduces a prayer's vulnerable surrender to something greater than yourself, the acceptance of your own insignificance, and the childlike hope that a force you can neither comprehend nor master will make it okay.
All right, well, the rest of that was me.
Eared, right?
But
Interesting, by the way, that the Sky I Scrape and Red Mosquito both come from no code, don't they?
I know we work with we go to war with the army that we have.
Fair enough.
One of the great things about us loving different albums, and like everybody liking different albums, is it forces you back into things. I can't remember how many times I've pulled out Backspacer and Gigaton, which are not my favorite albums, to listen to them again because it's like, man, somebody really picked up on some stuff here.
Mm-hmm.
I need to give this another listen. And, I spin those Pearl Jam records a lot, just going back and like, I need to hear what they're hearing. And I get to experience it all over again through new eyes. There's no better way to enjoy Pearl Jam than hearing what you've heard 50 times in a totally new way.
That is the beauty, my friends. That is the beauty of the Pearl Jam
maybe
community.
Maybe this book will do that for you. I don't know.
if only
I was waiting for you to show it. Yes.
Look, read a chapter, listen to the album. Read a chapter, listen to the album. I promise you'll never have a better experience.
Beautiful. Well, gentlemen, this has been a lot of fun, and I can't wait for the expanded edition that includes Lost Dogs, and because I really want to know what you think about Fatal.
I'd like Stip to tell me what to think about Fatal too.
I've been avoiding having to think about what to think about Fatal.
Well, we'll check back in a couple of years when you're forced to by your publisher, because sales have been booming because you out there listening or viewing have bought I Am No Guide, Pearl Jam, song by song, Brandon Rector, Brian Stippleman, a.k.a. Stip. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Brandon for the first time, Stip for the 10th time. Thank you, boys.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you,
Always
Jess.
a pleasure.
Again, thank you to Brandon and Stip, not only for the book, which is fabulous, but for the decades, holy crap, the decades, Paul, of content and thought and effort for the Sky Scrape or over at theskyscrape.com and the Red Mosquito Forum. They're in.
No doubt. I can say definitively that for me, as a Pearl Jam fan, every time Pearl Jam released a record, and anytime I was looking for connection, this obviously well predates our Discord, it was the writing on the Sky Scrape that really drew me in. Obviously, the forums on Red Mosquito, but Stip's reviews, the insights that he shared, the depth and breadth that he reviewed songs and albums, it gave a voice to the music, and it offered a perspective that it wasn't present anywhere else. And so I can't thank Stip and Brandon enough for taking the time to do this. And I know it was a long time coming, a labor of love. And we could not have been more privileged and honored to have these gentlemen on our show tonight. And when we say, hey, go buy this book, we're not just trying to shill for guests or even for friends. Legitimately mean that when I say this is requisite reading as a Pearl Jam fan, I legitimately mean it. Whether you agree with everything that's written in here or not, it's going to stimulate your thoughts, and it's going to provoke your Pearl Jam intuitions, and it's going to get you thinking deeply about the music, and it's going to generate conversation and some critical thinking. And I think we would all benefit from that. So
absolutely. It's I joke around a lot in this show because it's easier to joke around than to be serious. But I will say seriously, Stip's writing has been profoundly helpful in my understanding of the material when I don't get it. And then that only emboldens my love for the music that I've already really loved. So thank you, Stip, for that. Thank you, Brandon, for everything you do over at the website and for your participation in this book as well. I can't wait to go back and now listen to all these random ass notable performances.
I know.
Oh, man. Mankind from Toronto in 2000. How about that? Or I'm Open, 2007.
We may have to do some deep dives into these notable performances on this show. I don't know. We'll see.
Perhaps. Wink.
Perhaps.
Everybody out there, thank you for participating in this program, this episode. If you've enjoyed it, please go ahead and like this video, subscribe to this channel, and hit the old bell for notifications. That way you know when the new episodes come out every Tuesday is when they come out. But if you are audio only, Paul, what should they do?
Yeah, they should rate, review, and subscribe on their preferred podcast platform of choice. Feed that algorithm. And who knows? Maybe there's a sticker in your future.
Oh, well, there's definitely a sticker in your future. I would say both of them. If you go ahead and send $5 or more to our November fundraiser, that is the Wounded Warrior Project. They do fantastic work for our homeless, disabled, and every kind of veteran, which they absolutely should and deserve the best treatment that they can get for sacrificing for this wonderful nation. And I would appreciate it personally if you did. So we will send, like I said, we will send you those stickers and this button, this pin, if you do that. And if you donate the most to this wonderful nonprofit, you get this. Brad Clausen's new book, From a Basement in Seattle, the poster art of one Brad Clausen. It's fantastic, Paul. Look at this.
Oh, it also.
I opened right to the thing, right to the cover. Amazing.
A requisite tome on the any Pearl Jam memorabilia shelf.
If you want to support this show and this channel, Patreon is the way to do that. That's how we fund this whole thing, keep it on the air. We have tons of extra content, video stuff, audio stuff, a great Discord community, and every month a giveaway. This month the giveaway is, hey, look at that, Synergy, I Am No Guy, Pearl Jam, song by song. This could be yours, not this copy, another copy. But there you go. That's it. That's all I've got, Paul. That's all I've got. We're closing in on the end of the year.
That's all we have, but we are grateful in the month of gratitude for this book and for all of you listening or watching today, this evening, this afternoon, this morning on your commute. Keep feeding that algorithm, folks. I'm telling you, it's gobble gobble.
Okay. Paul is just famished for reviews and subscriptions. And I would assume turkey dinner.
I want next week we're going to talk reviews.
Next
week we are going to read at least one review next week.
just the one.
Just the one.
Just the one. All right, guys. Well, that's it. Thank you for being with us this week, and we'll be with you next week when we read at least one review. I assure you. But until then, you've been listening or watching
The State of Love and Trust.